Well, good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, so let's make a start. And welcome to today's planning meeting of the 8th of December 2025. I'd like to welcome members of the public, councillors and officers to this meeting, and I call upon the clerk who will advise how the meeting will run this afternoon. Thank you.
Please note that we are live streaming this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel to encourage more people to engage in our public meetings. The proceeding of the meeting will also be recorded. Please can I remind everyone to use their microphones when speaking and turn them off when finished. Please can attendees in person refrain from watching the live stream, as this will cause interference for our viewers. Please can you ensure that your mobile phones and iPads are turned to silent. We are not expecting any fire alarm testing today. In the event of an evacuation, please leave by the nearest exit and gather in the car park next to the library opposite Tesco. Should members of the public need to use the facilities, they are located through the doors to the right of the security guard. In accordance with the Constitution, members of the public who have registered to speak will be permitted to do so when invited by the Chair. I have confirmed those entitled to speak. Please note that registered speakers are not permitted to approach committee members or distribute documentation to the committee during the course of this meeting. Each application will be dealt with in the following order. The planning officer will present the submitted application and will outline the proposed recommendation in full. Any speakers registered to speak on the application will be invited to address the committee. This will be taken in the following order. Any councillor who is not a member of the committee, followed by speakers in support of the application. This will be followed by questions from members and responses from the planning officer. Once questions from the committee have concluded, the Chair will open the application for debate. At the conclusion of the debate, the Chair will seek a proposer and seconder for the application. The proposal must be in full and include all information, such as conditions or reasons. The Chair will then confirm with the planning officer if they wish to enter into a period of summing up. Members, if at any point you leave the meeting for any reason during the consideration of the application, you will be unable to vote on that application. I will now hand the chairing of the meeting to the Chair, Councillor Brooke.
Thank you very much. Clerk, are there any apologies or updates for the membership of this committee?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Just moving on now to the minutes, to confirm as correct record of the minutes of our meeting held on the 10th of November 2025. Is there a proposer, please? Councillor Strang, seconder, Councillor Paignton. All in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving swiftly to declarations of interest. First of all, members of the committee, have you any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests on the item of the agenda tonight? Please raise your hand. Thank you. Then over to officers. Have you any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests on the item on today's agenda? Thank you. Any urgent items?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Right, into the meat. Moving on to item 5, to consider an application for the Crossways Shopping Centre, Hyde Road, Paignton, P/2025/0490. The clerk has confirmed those who are registered to speak upon entry to the meeting. I will therefore ask Verity Clark to introduce the application. Thank you.
Thank you. So the application site is the Crossways Shopping Centre, which was built in the 1960s and featured a shopping centre and a multi-storey car park. This was demolished in 2023 to 24 following the grant of planning consent P/2020-0731. Since then, the site has been used by the council as a temporary car park. So the site has existing access from Hyde Road to the northeast and is bound by Torquay Road to the west. The access from Hyde Road is a private access lane which then links up to Torquay Road. The site's surrounded by a mixture of commercial and residential uses. And the topography of the site and the surrounding area is generally sloping down from Torquay Road to the west towards Hyde Road to the east, which results in a change of levels through the site. So this is an aerial photo. It's out of date though, because it shows the site prior to the demolition works taking place. As you can see, this was the location of the old shopping centre and car park in this area. So the site's located in the Paignton town centre, a primary shopping area and a secondary shopping frontage. The site is allocated in the local plan and the Paignton neighbourhood plan as a mixed-use development site of 150 residential units, and the town centre master plan recognises the site as one for redevelopment in the town centre. The site is also within a community investment area, flood zone 1 and a critical drainage area, and part of the site is at a high risk from surface water flooding. Consultation to extend the boundary of the old Paignton conservation area has been undertaken in 2025, which, if adopted, would result in the site being adjacent to the conservation area. And there are a number of listed buildings and a scheduled monument within the vicinity of the site. So, as an update to the committee, one additional letter of objection has been received since the writing of the committee report. This does not raise any new issues that have not already been addressed in the report. We've also received one neutral comment. This discusses the benefit of Swift boxes and suggests that more are added to the scheme. So this plan just showing now is the existing site layout. So these are the existing elevations, which show the temporary car park use, which is currently surrounded by fencing. The plan now showing is the proposed site plan. So this is a full planning application for the redevelopment of the site for 91 residential extra care dwellings, the formation of a day centre, which is use class EF, alongside communal facilities including a cafe, associated amenity space, landscaping and parking. So the proposal seeks 2 main blocks of built form connected by a single-storey link. So the Hyde Road section appears as a U-shape and will feature a lower ground floor level comprising the day centre use with associated plant and storage areas. And this will lead to an outside garden area for users. So that's here, the main entrance to the day centre, and then this is the garden area which is linked to the day centre use. So the main access to that day centre is on the northern elevation just here. And then we've got a car parking area and drop-off point, which is serving the day centre use. So that's this car park here. So the Torquay Road section of the building links to the Hyde Road building at upper ground floor level via a single-storey link, which is this section here. And it features a number of different uses for occupiers. So there's a further area of outside space, which is accessed at the upper ground floor level for residents of the extra care units. So that's this garden area here. So the Hyde Road vehicular access will lead to a car parking area with, as we were saying earlier, we've got 2 parking spaces and the 2 minibus spaces, and then we've got the drop-off area for the day centre, and then we've got the other car parking area which comes from Torquay Road. That features a new vehicular access, which then leads to 9 car parking spaces, which includes 2 disabled spaces, and that's for the use of staff linked to the extra care residential units. So that car parking area will also feature bin storage and the rear of the existing substation, which is here and here. So that's the substation. So given the difference in levels across the site, there is no link between the 2 car parking areas. So this is the proposed lower ground floor plan. Given the site levels, this level only spreads across part of the site and is accessed from Hyde Road. So this level features the day centre use, which will replace the existing facilities which have reached the end of their lifespan at the Holcombe Community Resource Centre. This facility will provide day support for adults with a range of complex physical and cognitive disabilities, and access to the day centre garden is also at that level. So there's pedestrian access from Hyde Road, also for the extra care flats, which lead to the higher levels, which is just located over here. So this next plan is the upper ground floor level. So the main access to the extra care flats is at this level and via the Torquay Road side. So you can see that just over here. And then we've got another access in this location. So this level features communal uses for the extra care flats, which include a cafe, a lounge, activity room and staff facilities. So there is access to the shared garden for the flats, and there's also a shared terrace which overlooks the garden area serving the day centre. So this is the shared terrace here. So at this level there are 14 one-bedroom units, 1 two-bedroom unit and 2 one-bedroom wheelchair units. So this next plan is the first floor level. This features 19 one-bedroom units, 2 two-bedroom units and 2 wheelchair units. So next up, this is the second floor level, which mimics the first floor level in terms of the unit numbers and types. So this is the third floor level. This includes 17 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units. So this level also features a communal garden room and outside roof terrace area, which you can just see over here. So the third floor section facing Hyde Road is set in from the building line here just to reduce the visual impact. So you can just see there the lip where it's set in from the frontage. And so this is the final fourth floor level for the Torquay Road and the central block sections. So this features 7 one-bedroom units, 1 two-bedroom unit and 1 one-bedroom wheelchair unit. So similar to the third floor level, this section of the building facing Torquay Road is set back from the building line. You can just see that there. So this is showing the roof level. You can see there's varying plant enclosures alongside solar panel arrays. So then moving away from the floor plans, this plan is showing some of the proposed elevations. So the Torquay Road elevation, which is the top image, features 5 stories. However, the top floor has been set back from the edge, employing a flat roof design in a different material to the bulk of the building. So just for context, in the lighter outline, you can see the BT building, which is a comparable height. In terms of the context, you can see that just there. And then on this image, it's quite faint, but it's there. So the central section of the building is visible on the central image, this one here, and you can see that this central block here features 6 stories, and this connects via a single-storey link to the building fronting Torquay Road. There's a single-storey link. Here's the Torquay Road frontage, Torquay Road, and then the buildings opposite on Torquay Road. So the Hyde Road elevation, which is the bottom image, features 5 stories, and that again has got the setback of the 4th floor. So these are the remaining elevations, mainly from within the site. The top image gives a helpful cross-section with Torquay Road on the far left. So we've got Torquay Road. We've then got the Torquay Road frontage section here. You've got the single-storey link, which is this element. You've got the largest 6-storey block in the centre, and then we've got the sort of the Hyde Road frontage, and then we've got the Hyde Road buildings over there, just for a bit more context. So these are coloured up images of the development, with the top image showing the Torquay Road elevation and the bottom image showing the Hyde Road elevation. So materials include facing brickwork and aluminium on the setback top level to provide a contrast. So the brick detailing aims to break up the verticality of the elevations by creating a hierarchy between the base, the middle and the top of the building, whilst the setback makes the top level less dominant. So repetition of the bays aims to reflect the properties along Hyde Road and Torquay Road, amplified by the alternating watercolour. The ground floor is a boulder treatment which reflects the different usages at the lower levels. And then at the upper level, the elevation treatment is simpler. Fenestration is in silk grey, and the buildings feature balconies, again with a silk grey metal balustrading, which are serving the extra care units. So this is a 3D context drawing, just to give an idea of how the development will sit within the context of the area. And then this slide's just showing a context drawing, show how the development would look from Hyde Road. And then we've got a few more context drawings. So we've got the top left image, which shows a view from near Victoria Park. The top right image shows a view from Hyde Road looking south. The bottom left image shows a view from Hyde Road looking north. And then finally, the bottom right image shows a view from Torquay Road looking south. So the following are just some photos taken of the site. So this image is taken from Hyde Road with the access into the temporary car park and the BT building in the background. So this is the BT building. Site image is also taken from Hyde Road, just shows the existing access which will be used into the site. So this image is taken from within the car park, and that's looking towards the rear of 12 to 14 Hyde Road and the Meridian House flats, which are these buildings. And then this photo is taken from the private access road, looking down to the car park and across the BT building and the post office delivery office. So again, BT building, and then this is the post office delivery office. So this image is taken from Dendy Road, and that's looking towards the post office delivery office. The proposed development will be visible from that viewpoint because it's kind of going to be behind in that gap. And then we've got this image, which is now taken from Torquay Road, and that's looking towards 52 Torquay Road, which is here. And then we've got this view, which is just more generally looking from Torquay Road. And then again, Torquay Road looking towards the post office building. And then lastly, this image is taken from standing within the car park, looking towards the properties on the opposite side of Torquay Road. So this slide lists the key material considerations, which are considered in detail in the committee report. So the committee report confirms that from a housing perspective, the presumption in favour of sustainable development is engaged. The site is allocated in the local plan and the neighbourhood plan for a retail and mixed use on the ground floor and residential above. So the extra care housing will provide integrated health and social care facilities for people of all ages who have a specific need for housing with on-site support. So the regeneration of town centre areas is very strongly supported in the development plan. And the proposed development will result in many benefits, including the introduction of residential development to Paignton Town Centre, which will generate additional retail and leisure expenditure within the town centre. The proposal will deliver a new day centre facility in a sustainable and accessible location to replace the existing facilities which have reached the end of their lifespan at the Holcombe Community Resource Centre. And this facility will provide day support for adults with a range of complex physical and cognitive disabilities. So the proposal will provide significant investment to Paignton Town Centre, which will assist in boosting the confidence of other businesses and investors, visitors and shoppers within the town centre. So the principle of a mixed-use development of residential and commercial uses in this location is deemed to be acceptable. So in terms of the design, visual appearance and character of the area, no concerns are raised with the height of the central block section of the building. However, there are concerns with the scale and massing of the building overall and subsequently how it would fit in with the character and appearance of the locality. So it's understood that the height of the central block, which has the least visual impact, cannot be further raised due to viability concerns which would result from a taller building. And it's unfortunate that this central section could not be raised in height further to facilitate a lower height on the more prominent elevations facing Hyde Road and Torquay Road. But whilst the overall height is similar to that of the BT building, this building is not highly visible in the street scene due to its siting, and therefore the overall prevailing height of buildings in the area is that of 2- and 3-storey buildings. It is considered that the resultant size, scale and massing presented would fail to integrate well with the scale of the buildings in the locality and would appear overly dominant in nature. And as a result, the proposal would fail to be considered appropriate in terms of its visual impact and the impact of the townscape. In terms of the proposed layout, the desire for a pedestrian route through the site is set out within policy PMP8C, which states that the development proposal will be supported that retains a pedestrian link between Torquay Road and Hyde Road in a manner that contributes towards improvements of the pedestrian network and green infrastructure links. So the police designing out prime officer expressed a concern about the proposed pedestrian link between Hyde Road and Torquay Road in terms of safety and potential crime risk at the pre-application stage. And this was a particular concern because of the vulnerable nature of some of the residents. So policy DE1 of the local plan refers to the need for design to reduce crime, as does PMP1G of the neighbourhood plan. And securing a successful residential and mixed-use development on the site is a high priority, and the lack of a pedestrian link is on balance considered to be acceptable given the safety concerns, and the suitable alternatives exist utilising the main pavements between Hyde Road and Torquay Road. So moving on to heritage, the application is supported by an archaeological desk-based assessment, and the report concludes that it is demonstrated, in line with the MPPF and PPG policy tests, that there is no significant impact upon the setting of these listed buildings and the wider older Paignton conservation area and its possible extension by the proposed development, and that the proposals do not result in harm to the significance of the designated and non-designated heritage assets. The Council's Conservation and Urban Design Officer has identified the nearby designated heritage assets and the impact the proposal will have on them. It is concluded that the proposal would result in a minor level of less than substantial harm to the setting of the conservation area and the setting of the identified heritage assets, and this level of harm must be considered in the overall balance against the public benefits of the proposal. So in terms of amenity issues, the committee report confirms that all apartments are considered to provide an acceptable scale of living accommodation, and external uses will have an acceptable impact on the proposed development. Whilst there are some concerns raised with the level of light achieved in some of the units, given the light levels achieved in the previously consented scheme, and when balancing the benefits for residents obtained from having private balconies, the level of light and quality of internal environment in the proposed extra care unit flats is considered acceptable. Impacts on the amenity of surrounding uses and occupiers is considered in detail in the committee report, and the results of the daylight and sunlight reports are considered in depth. Overall, it's considered that this report and further justification confirms that the proposal will have an acceptable impact on the light levels of surrounding properties, including residential uses and commercial uses, and will result in a satisfactory form of development in terms of protecting the amenities of adjacent occupiers. From a highways and parking perspective, the western section of the site includes 9 bays, 2 of which are disabled, and this will accommodate the residential extra care units, which is for staff and medical professionals visiting the site. It's anticipated that residents will have a low level of car ownership. The remaining 4 bays and drop-off zone in the eastern section of the site are for the use of the day centre use, and justification for the parking provision has been provided within a transport statement and update response. The highway engineer has requested that a travel plan is conditioned and that a monitoring fee is obtained via section 106, and that the travel plan should be ambitious in reducing parking demand and must be strictly monitored to ensure no issues arise from the under-provision of parking. So matters relating to access, trip generation, highway safety, pedestrian and cycle access, and cycle and buggy parking and servicing are all considered in depth in the report and are considered acceptable. So moving on to ecology issues, the DCC ecologist has considered the information submitted and has confirmed that there is very limited ecological concerns associated with this development. With regard to the impact on European designated sites, the conclusions of the Shadow HRA are agreed and should be adopted by the Council. So the mitigation measures of a Kemp is recommended to be secured by condition, and the mitigation payment for the recreational impacts on the Berryhead Sack should be secured by a Section 106 legal agreement. In terms of issues relating to trees, the Council's Senior Tree Officer has recommended that hard and soft landscaping details should be secured by condition. So the site is located in Flood Zone 1 and a critical drainage area, and part of the site is also at risk from surface water flooding. As the proposal is on an allocated site and is consistent with the use for which the site was allocated, coupled with the fact that the site was highlighted at being at risk from surface water flooding in the local plan at the time of allocation, the sequential test will not be engaged. So the Council's drainage engineer has confirmed that the surface water drainage and the flood evacuation plan are acceptable. So matters relating to low carbon development and designing out crime are considered and can be adequately addressed by conditions. So the report concludes that the harm identified to the designated heritage asset of the old Paignton conservation area and the nearby scheduled monument and listed buildings from the proposal is assessed as at the minor end of less than substantial harm. The public benefits in the form of the economic and social benefits include the economic growth and associated economic benefits to the construction industry from the proposed development, and the proposal would also result in additional disposable income from occupants. The proposal would provide housing where there is a lack of a 5-year housing land supply, and this would be located within a sustainable location, and some of which would be affordable housing, with the applicant indicating the intention to provide 100% as affordable, although only 20% can be secured formally. Other matters that weigh in favour include the provision of a day centre, which is a significant social benefit, and the use of landscaping and drainage schemes, and the proposal also promotes low carbon and energy efficiency measures in the building, and the promotion of bicycle storage. The proposed development will result in less than substantial harm to the identified heritage assets, and the development will be of a size, scale and massing that would fail to integrate well with the scale of the buildings in the locality and would appear overly dominant in nature. As a result, the proposal would fail to be considered appropriate in terms of its visual impact and the impact of the townscape. However, the proposed development would provide significant regeneration benefits. So paragraph 215 of the MPPF indicates that proposals that result in less than substantial harm to the significance of the designated heritage assets should be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. So the level of harm identified is less than the threshold that would constitute a strong reason for refusal under paragraph 11 of the MPPF. So on balance, the public benefits of the scheme as a whole, when weighed against the level of harm caused, are considered to justify the proposal, and the proposal is considered to represent sustainable development when considering the local plan, neighbourhood plan and the MPPF. Other than the less than substantial harm to the designated heritage assets and the visual impact, there are no other adverse impacts of granting planning permission. So the committee report considers all the issues mentioned in depth and considers the local plan policies listed on this slide. Also considers the neighbourhood plan policies listed on this slide and the MPPF. So the draft local plan consultation is currently at the regulation 18 stage and therefore holds very minimal weight. The policies in the draft plan are not considered to conflict with the current proposal and adds additional support for town centre development and highlights a greater need for older people's accommodation. So the officer recommendation is therefore that of conditional approval, subject to the conditions as outlined in the committee report, with the final drafting of the planning conditions delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency and or the Divisional Director of Place Strategy, the completion of a Section 106 agreement and the resolution of any new material considerations that may come to light following Planning Committee to be delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency and or the Divisional Director of Place Strategy, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Clark, for that. For this item, as Chair of the Planning Committee, I've decided to exercise my discretion and permitted an extension of time for public speaking. I've agreed to 10 minutes in total for those speaking in support of the application. There will therefore be 10 minutes for all other registered speakers. So first of all, I call on Councillor Tyman to address the meeting. Councillor, you have 10 minutes and the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope I won't take the full 10 minutes. The facility that's been designed here is to meet the need for better support for many of our elder residents. Extra care support has been developed in previous years by Torbay Council, both at Dunboyne and Whitley Court, but the quantity at those locations simply does not anywhere meet the demand that we have in Torbay for such a facility. The council recognises the need for a new extra care facility and has been seeking a way to provide that at Crossways for a number of years. The scheme in front of you, I just wished to let you know, has the full support of myself and the Cabinet. Without the facility, simply too many of our residents find their needs can only be met in care homes. Care homes provide a valuable service, but in many cases, they do not provide the independence in living that many of our residents desire and that many of our residents would like to see us provide to enable them to keep that independence going for as long into their elderly years as possible. And I don't want to just talk about the elderly. That level of independence is a vital factor for many other people in need of care facilities, sadly many at a much younger age. So as I say, the facilities or the plans to provide extra care at Crossways have been around for a number of years. Earlier plans just proved to be non-viable. And much work has therefore gone on over the last year or two to change the scheme in ways that make sure that service levels are provided, that we provide what is needed, and yet at a cost that this council can afford. That has resulted in compromises. And some may look at the scheme in front of us and, for example, it was mentioned before, look at the bulk of the building and say, this isn't ideal. All I'm going to ask this committee to do is understand and look at these plans with their eyes on a bigger picture. To consider the benefits to our vulnerable residents of such a facility. And to have that facility at Crossways in Paignton is, in my opinion, exactly where we need to be. And I ask you to look at that, consider those aspects, and please, please, please give that your due consideration for the benefit of our residents. This is not a scheme here because the council wants it for its benefit. It's to provide services to vulnerable residents, and I ask you to bear that in mind as you go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Tymon. I'm now going to call Ms. Bethan Huntley on behalf of Safe Sustainable Travel Torbay to address the meeting in support of the application. You have 5 minutes. I know, Bethan, you're on the Zoom. And the clerk, all teams, and the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? Great. Chair, members of the committee, thank you. My name is Beth Huntley and I'm speaking on behalf of local charity Safe Sustainable Travel Torbay. We fully support the regeneration of this site and recognise the significant social value this proposal represents. However, under the National Planning Policy Framework, even developments of clear community benefit must secure the mitigation necessary to make them acceptable in planning terms. First, Hyde Road and Torquay Road have no cycling infrastructure. Traffic volumes and speed make shared cycling within the carriageway unsafe and inaccessible for most would-be cyclists. That's the Department of Transport 2020. The travel plan itself identifies numerous collisions in the immediate area, yet predicts a 100% increase in staff cycling to the location over 5 years, without providing a route to enable that change. The MPPF and Local Plan Policy TA2 require developments to ensure safe, accessible and sustainable travel routes. If this was a road connection, the developer would have to create a link to the site, and we're asking that active travel infrastructure be treated no differently. At the very least, the development should provide safe access to the existing cycling route in Victoria Park. This means upgrading the signalised crossing and incorporating a cycle route. Without this, there is no safe way for staff or visitors to arrive by bike, and the travel plan's target will not be met. Second, Paignton Neighbourhood Plan Policy 8 expects redevelopment to improve connectivity between Hyde Road and Torquay Road. The temporary car park currently provides permeability, and people can be seen to use this frequently because it is direct and convenient. Removing this link creates severance in the heart of the town centre. Concerns about antisocial behaviour should be addressed through design. Eliminating permeability altogether is disproportionate. As a minimum, a controlled gate could allow employees travelling on foot, cycle or public transport to avoid lengthy detours, but full permeability should be the preferred option. Finally, continuous footways at Hyde Road entrances would reduce vehicle entry speeds, improve safety and reinforce pedestrian priorities that are in the highway code hierarchy, something particularly important due to the vulnerable nature of some residents and users. These measures are modest, proportionate, and make a small but important contribution towards aligning this regeneration with local and national policy, and we urge the committee to secure them as conditions of approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Huntley. I now call Phil Jones and Adam Russell to address the meeting in support of the application. Gentlemen, you have 5 minutes to share between yourselves, and the clerk will let you know when there is 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. Thank you for allowing us to briefly speak on the application this evening. We're delighted to bring this important proposal to you and to seek your support to enable it to progress towards construction. This is an important regeneration site for Torbay as a whole, and particularly for Paignton. It represents an opportunity to maximise the potential of a highly sustainable brownfield site supported by Homes England funding. The new homes proposed will make a substantial contribution to the Council's housing land supply. As you are aware, planning permission was previously granted for a similar development on the Crossways site in February 2021. Unfortunately, that planning permission was not viable and it was undeliverable, owing to the inefficiency of the design and also changing regulations, which meant that it exceeds the high-risk building threshold for fire regulations. The scheme before you improves on that design by dramatically increasing the efficiency of the scheme, meaning it is more usable floor space in the development for the investment, and by dropping the overall height to ensure it falls below the fire safety threshold. While those 2 points were fundamental requirements, the opportunity has also been taken to ensure the scheme meets the user requirements. A new community resource centre forms part of the proposals to replace the existing ageing facility in Holcombe, and the remainder of the development is given over to dedicated extra care accommodation, which will be 100% affordable and will prioritise local people. The design of the scheme has been informed by a careful review of previous designs to take lessons from that scheme and the planning process, detailed engagement with the NHS and adult social care user groups, which included direct liaison with the design team and the architects who are specialists in care facilities and accommodation. An awful lot of technical assessment work has gone into the scheme, as your officer has already explained, which has included a whole range of different issues. And then we've also had detailed pre-application discussions with officers and taken the scheme to a design review panel. The resulting proposal represents a scheme that will firstly deliver high-quality residential accommodation for residents of the extra care apartments, allowing them to live independently and with support on site as needed, and with the ability to access the town centre services and facilities in Paignton. And secondly, a purpose-built new community resource centre that will meet and provide state-of-the-art facilities for users and support staff. I'll allow Adam to elaborate on that.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly in support of the application. The reason behind the commissioning of this development on the Crossways site is to meet the growing demand for adult social care services in Torbay and to address the problem of ageing infrastructure supporting the most vulnerable part of our local adult population. By 2042, the Office of National Statistics estimates that 1/3 of the population of Torbay will be over state retirement age, with a commensurate increase in the kind of disabilities and frailties that increase would lead to. And the numbers of people with complex learning and physical disabilities will have increased significantly. This requires adult social care commissioners to find effective ways to divert people away from high-cost, low-outcome services like residential care. Purpose-designed, accessible, supported housing with on-site care at Crossways, alongside a state-of-the-art learning disability resource centre, will be absolutely key to this work. The Crossways scheme will provide housing and support for adults of all ages who have a range of disabilities and who are currently living in Torbay. Everyone living at the scheme will need to have a local connection and to be also deemed eligible for social care services by the council or the local NHS. The scheme will also release some social or private rented family housing across Torbay. Modern town-centred supported housing schemes like Crossways are essential in keeping older people and people with disabilities living independently within the heart of their local community.
1 minute remaining.
This is a core element of the Council's social care strategy, an important part of our duties under the Care Act 2014. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So, members, I'm now going to invite questions to our planning officer. Please may I remind members questions should only cover matters not raised in the presentation. Any members wishing to ask a question not covered by the officer's report or presentation? Councillor Fox.
Thank you for all the presentations. I think have been very helpful. Just a couple of points. One is the number of wheelchair accessed facilities is just down to, or units is 8, which seems quite low. We've talked about pedestrian access and the police concerns about safety, but the converse argument obviously is to get a more porous site that would be, as it were, in more in line with sustainable transport. But I would also just compliment the officers on a well-written report, particularly on the aspects of town centre regeneration, which I thought were very well made. Thank you.
Councillor Fox, do you have a specific question?
I suppose the question is asking was why only 8 units for wheelchair accessible units, and why has the police argument overridden what I would call a sustainability argument in terms of pedestrian access through the site?
So just firstly on the wheelchair units, there's only 7, so it's not 8, just to confirm that. In terms of policy H6, it meets the requirements of that. And we've also got the planning contributions and affordable housing supplementary planning guidance. There was the update note 1. And as part of that, that did say that it just reiterates that policy H6 of the local plan requires that 5% of dwellings on sites of 50 plus units should be provided as the M42 standard. So all of the units meet that standard. But it goes on to then say, however, in light of Torbay's ageing population, this level of provision is unlikely to meet the current requirements. Accordingly, all affordable dwellings should be built to M42 or higher, and the council will seek at least 5% of affordable homes to be the M43, which is the wheelchair suitable dwellings. So 5% requirement on what we've got would mean that we need to provide 5 units. So actually the 7 units is actually in excess of our policy requirements, and the sort of the additional guidance note which I just stated. I don't know, Alex, if you want to add anything to that particular question before I move on to the other one.
I was also just going to add that is the maximum wheelchair units that we could fit on that site with the space that we've got there.
So then in terms of the question about the police and the connectivity, I think...
One moment, Verity. Alex, before you speak, could you just say who you are?
Sorry, I'm Alex Rayhag. I'm the Affordable Housing Manager.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry, I should have introduced Alex. So in terms of the question about permeability, I think I tried to give a bit of an explanation in the committee report. So obviously there is that desire in the Paignton Neighbourhood Plan policy. It did come forward at the pre-application stage with a link. The police designing out crime officer gave quite a lot of commentary at that, and we also took it to design review panel. And there were concerns raised with that at the time. There's also concerns with the vulnerability of the potential service users of the day centre. And it was eventually felt that we could actually bring forward overall a better quality scheme that didn't have the link than one which came forward with the link, which would potentially be unsafe. But it is obviously part of the weighing up and the balancing. And hopefully I've just sort of tried to draw that out a little bit in the committee report. Does that hopefully answer that question?
It's also just worth pointing out it's not an enclosed inward-looking site, it's also outward-looking as well, so it's been designed to make sure that entrances and exits face that crossing into Victoria Park and opposite into Torquay Road. So quite a lot of thought's gone into positioning of how do you get in and out of the site as well. So it's not just enclosed, there are reasons why it needs to be safe, but also accessible and legible as well to gain access to the park.
Councillor Billings.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of questions, if I may. The first one, I wanted to pick up on what we heard the speaker, Ms Huntley, refer to in terms of the need for a cycleway to connect to the development. I just wanted the officer's view as to whether that's an appropriate request in relation to this. As I understand it, for that to be a condition, it would need to be necessary. And is this something that meets that test, please?
So to secure that, we'd be looking to secure that via Section 106. So we'd have to consider our affordable housing SPD. So that would potentially come forward as a sustainable development contribution, which is kind of like the third rung when you're looking at that. But it needs to be sought only on the basis of infrastructure needs arising from large developments where SIL is not sought. So we could potentially seek it, but it was my view that it was not necessary.
Thank you. Chair, I've got a couple of other detailed questions. On condition 2, we've got under the construction environmental management plan, we've got 7th bullet, we've got criteria relating to the type of engine for construction machinery. I just wondered whether the officer thought that that was appropriate or whether we thought we were being a little bit excessively detailed.
So that condition's come forward as part of our consultees, who obviously consider that to be necessary, and I wouldn't disagree with that necessarily on the basis of my not detailed expert knowledge on that basis.
And then again, Chair, at question 3, we've got a written scheme of investigation for archaeological purposes. Could the officer help me in terms of how much work we anticipate that's being required here? I'm very aware there was formerly development on the site, there's probably been foundations, lots of disturbance has already been made. It would help me to understand how much benefit we think we're going to find for ecology, archaeology rather, bearing in mind the previous developed nature of the site.
So that condition has been recommended by the Devon County archaeologist. Just trying to bring up the part in the committee report which reiterates his comments, just because it explains in there why it's necessary and why there most likely are archaeological deposits still on the site. Bear with me.
It's on page 48.
I've just literally got to it. It was a very long report. Yes, I think it's really where he said that it indicates that there's archaeological deposits are likely to survive across the southern edge of the site, and as such, groundworks for the construction of the proposed development across the southeastern boundary of the site has the potential to expose and destroy archaeology and artifactual deposits associated with the early origins of Paignton. So the impact of development upon the archaeological resource should be mitigated by a programme of archaeological works that should investigate, record and analyse. I suppose a lot of the time it really depends on what they find and how detailed it ends up needing to be. I don't know if, Jim, you want to add?
I guess there's two things. This is consistent with the previous application, and also if you think where you are in terms of so close to Bishop's Palace and some of the other, it is at the heart of Old Paignton, so there is good reason for that, but it's consistent with the previous one, which is important.
Thank you, that's most helpful. And then in terms of final question, and yes, you're right, Ms. Clark, it's a very long report. The paragraph, condition 13 in relation to energy and sustainability. We've got a requirement to provide the MCS installer's certificate, and I believe that's being tied, sorry, this is on page 92, it's the first bullet, pre-occupation. I just wonder whether that might delay someone using these units, and whether there was an alternative way we could achieve that end which wouldn't delay occupation.
I'd expect all of that, because a lot of it's obviously part of the actual built form, and then, the solar panels, etc. on the roof. We need to secure that somehow, and I do think prior to occupation is probably the appropriate trigger point for that. There's not really much of a trigger point that you could leave that was much later. And it is something, obviously, we have declared a climate emergency. It is something we should be ensuring actually takes place.
If I may though, the MCS installer certificate, which we've given an example, wouldn't be the only way of demonstrating compliance with that. The agent might be able to do other things during the build process. I'm just aware you'd probably get a certificate at the end, that's all. If there are other ways, then I think that answers my question.
Well, I think it's written as an example, so it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they have to do. It's just trying to give a bit of a hint on what they could do. If they find there's another alternative way of demonstrating that, then obviously we'd be amenable to looking at that.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ms. Clark.
Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just ask about natural light, please? I know there were some concerns about lack of natural light throughout the building, and some things have been changed. In your opinion, and obviously in your report, do you feel that there is enough natural light in in the building and the individual apartments, obviously?
So that was definitely a concern when I first looked at the first report for daylight within the development. So we did go back to the applicant and asked them to look into it a little bit further. So that has then, the updates they've made has improved the situation for the flats, but it is very much a balance that the internal light levels could be improved quite a few of the flats if the balconies were removed. But then you have to weigh up the fact that the balconies actually provide really significant benefits for the occupiers. So would it be better if we didn't have balconies, but then better potential light levels in some of the flats? Or is it better that we have balconies that, particularly if people are not necessarily mobile, it means that they can get a bit more quality of life within those flats? So it was a bit of a balance. And then the applicant did also helpfully provide the analysis of light levels for the previously consented scheme, which we didn't actually have at the time of the last consent. But it does show that it's actually an improvement on what we previously allowed, and that the light levels in the proposed flats are at a better standard than some of them which are allowed. So on the balance of all of those sort of matters, it's my belief that it is acceptable.
Any other questions, colleagues? I've just got a couple, if I may, and Verity. The first one, I suppose, is dovetailing in with Councillor Darling there. I'd just be interested that the applicants have gone through pre-application and DRP for residents watching a design review panel. Can you just give me a feel of the type of changes that have been introduced to overcome certain concerns you may have had and which you don't have now? That'd be helpful.
Yeah, so one of the additions that was made following the design review panel and the pre-application stage was the introduction of additional roof, like the roof terrace, so the roof terrace garden. So I think that was a real benefit, to be honest. That's the garden facing Hyde Road, so that probably will get quite a lot of light. There was also changes during the course of the application in terms of, it was like technical specifications in terms of how many brise-laits are on there, so you know how much light they might filter out. Thickness of walls were reduced after that was looked at it in more detail. So there were sort of minor changes during the application stage, but there was quite a lot of changes during the pre-application stage, following on from the DRP and from my own sort of officer comments. The top section of the building was set in to reduce the visual impact, but then they raised the central section up so it was higher, to the 6 stories, to try and sort of add extra development to the part of the site that's the least sort of contentious, the least likely to impact on neighbours and surrounding users and the visual impact. So there has been quite a lot of change at the pre-application stage and then a little bit of change during this current application to kind of get to where we are now. Hopefully that answers that.
Yes, sir. Excuse me, going over the flu, coughing away. I have got over it, Jim, don't worry. The second question I had, though, was, I suppose, going on from what Councillor Tyman was talking about, and without this development, we'll find residents going into care homes, and obviously anybody who's got elderly relatives, and I have, and I've had in the past, you know, the need to go into care homes is the last resort, frankly. I'm trying to get a feel, though, of the complex scenarios that some of our residents are finding themselves in, why they then need this setup. It's not clear in the reports at all, giving I suppose a paint the picture, a feel of our residents and their circumstances, why they essentially need it. I just wondered if you can, if you can't, somebody else can, elaborate on the type of circumstances where we have residents in and how they will then their needs be met specifically in this setup.
Alex Rayhag again. I can probably give you a little bit of information around that. I mean, at the minute, there are a lot of people that are living in larger current affordable housing stock within Torbay. I think there's over 50 households that are living in family-sized accommodation that only require 1 bedroom. They may be lonely, struggling to cope in those properties. That then relies on them having to find somebody to come in and provide some basic care and assistance around their house in order, to keep their gardens and things like that maintained. There are a lot of younger people as well. This is not just for older people. It's people that have had terrible accidents, that are unable to live independently on their own. They need that little bit of support. But actually, if you put those people into a care environment, that can limit their independence, and they may not ever get out of that property. They need to be somewhere where they can actually live as independently as possible, but actually be around other people that can provide them with some, avoid that loneliness, really, I suppose. But there's so many different scenarios. These schemes do provide a massive, massive opportunity. There are lots and lots of people in really, really large properties within Torbay. I think we've got some 4 and 5 bedroom properties that people need to get out of. The sheltered accommodation is not what it used to be. You don't have a resident warden there now. So you've just got the call alarm system. So in that kind of scenario, you haven't got that support that's on site that you would get in an extra care scheme, that they can come straight up and offer you some help if you have a fall, for example. Does that help?
Maybe Adam can help as well. Adam.
He can't, no. Because I'm used to activities of daily living, and the inability to wash, clean, cook. Are we talking of scenarios of residents like that? We talk what?
It's whole variety. There are people that need somebody to come in morning, noon, and night for them, just to make sure that they've actually been able to get out of bed, that they've been able to have a cup of tea, just some basic scenarios. Obviously, this kind of environment, there's somewhere for them to be able to get that care and access that quite easily. There's some real, probably quite dire circumstances that you could probably imagine as well. The extra care schemes that I know of have just provided a massive new lease of life for people. They've had like a cafe downstairs, they've been able to socialise, all of that kind of, even the simple bathing scenarios where they've had a proper bath with the hoists and everything else in place that just makes life easier for them.
Yes, Councillor Time.
I think the other thing to note in this is the fact that all our benchmarking shows that we have in Torbay a higher than normal number of residents in care homes. And I think that shows you that the need we have is not being met in the right way at the moment. Facilities like this actually give us that flexibility to meet that demand in a different way, and a way that is better for our residents, very often cheaper for ourselves. But I think the real aspect is you almost have to look at each individual, and because some individuals will need to be in a care home, others would go into a facility like this rather than a care home and probably be able to remain there for a number of years. They may need to move on to a care home later, but each case is different.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions? Sorry, Councillor Darling.
Can I just say one thing in addition to the speakers? I think that the extra care allows people to maintain their independence, and that has to be the important thing. So rather than being done to, which if you're in a care home, you need that additional done to. If you're in a supported living, you're supported, but you are maintaining your independence, which is very, very important.
Okay, members, I'm now just going to open up for debate. Councillor Billings.
I think, Chair, what we've got here is an excellent application. We've got 91 extra care units, and if we looked at from the lens of the people that will be occupying this, there's a very clear planning need to provide this type of facility. my colleague, Councillor Darling, expressed that it was a case of enabling people so that they could live independently rather than them feeling that they were done to. So there's very clearly the planning need, and as Councillor Timon said, we've got a demographic of population that does need this because of our average age in Torbay, and yet we're short of this type of facility. As the officer report points out, we've got £42 million investment going in through this, and on an operational basis creating 53 full-time jobs. So there's lots and lots of fundamental reasons that are important here. I think the key one, though, ultimately is the provision of the facility. We saw on our site visit how the design appeared to accommodate all of the different viewpoints in the way that some of the top floor was set back, the routes through were mirrored on, so as you went through to Victoria Park, that reflected in the design ethos. And we also saw how within the development itself there were enclosed private spaces for the amenity of those within the site to enjoy an area away from the public highway. Very much in support of what's here, and I would really say that the quality of the design is testament to the work of the applicant, engaging through the pre-application process, going through design review panel, and the hard work of the planning team. So thank you to Mr Blackwell and Ms Clark. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Penny.
Thank you, Chair. As a member of this committee who was chairing this committee when this came around in 2021, obviously I'm really pleased to see what we've got in front of us today. If we were in a different forum, I would probably lean a bit more into my frustration that the plans of the previous administration weren't delivered, and we'd probably challenge other claims in terms of feasibility, but that's not for this forum. So I'm pleased to say I'll be supporting this, and I just really want, given the delay that we've seen over many years, I really hope that we get a move on and start developing the site ASAP after tonight's meeting.
Councillor Fox.
I think this meets a number of important objectives, and I for one will be supporting it. I just think it's an excellent location for this. I think it's a shot in the arm for a very tired looking bit of the centre of Paignton. I think the whole point about giving people of a certain age or a certain disability the independence of life is also a really important factor in favour of this. I just think it's a very sustainable development, so I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Strang.
Looking at the design, I think it's a very good design. I like the way that it steps back from the road as the height increases on the project. The green spaces available for the occupants of the building, I think, is very nice, and I would be supporting. I'd be happy to propose that we, following debate, that we accept this, the recommendations of the officer and the conditions that are included within the report.
Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you all can guess that I fully support this. Everybody has different needs. Some people need nursing homes, some people need care homes. My mum's in a care home, and some people will flourish in supported living. I wish we could get more apartments, but it's just what it is, and I'm really pleased, and yeah, hope we can do some more in the future at other sites. Thank you.
Any others, colleagues? For my mind, I think it's a fantastic scheme. I have to congratulate, all those who put a heck of a lot of work into the design. I think on site I was commenting, I just felt like the designs coming forward to the committee in recent times have just been so much better, and this is so much better than it could have been. you know, so I'd say well done. I think the roof terraces was a, you know, what they call a light bulb moment, you know, for residents with limited mobility to pop up on a roof terrace. I think they're going to have a good sea view. They'll be able to see the air show as well, you know, and the outside balconies give outside space. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful design. And I spoke earlier about the independent living, etc. And yeah, I remember my nan, who it was fundamental to her living longer than she did because of independent living at home rather than going in a care home, which frankly we felt was a bit like, well, she felt as soon as she went in a care home, it was goodbye, nan. But before that, we had 8 years of her in independent living, which was brilliant. So I think this is wonderful, wonderful. So we got a proposer. Councillor Paignton to second. Need to read out what we're proposing, because as is, it's on the screen. Don't think we need to say it again. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Excellent. Well, I call this meeting to an end. Thank you very much for your attendance.